as well as, I suppose, more Leitrim specific kind of guidance to look out for in terms of whether if you're making an application, like the plan, county development plan itself. So there's, I suppose, you don't want to overload people with planning information. It just it will bore you to tears most of the time. But
and there's so much to consider at this stage of the process as well.
Yeah. So,
but I suppose in Leitrim we can't not talk about if there is a property that you find that you want to go for, and but there's no septic tank.
Yeah.
It is a challenge here. What's the advice there?
Yeah, look, I think even beyond planning and development circles, the issue of wastewater treatment in Leitrim, it's well known. It's, I suppose, just to give an overview, on-site wastewater treatment, such as the provision of a septic tank or a packaged treatment system, has to adhere to a one-size-fits-all national standard. So that's the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency Code of Practice 2021. So unfortunately, in a Leitrim context, we don't have, I suppose you could call it, the geological regime of our soils that are conducive to be adhering to the Code of Practice itself. So basically, a lot of our soils would be very much clay-based, marl-based, dab, what we would call up in our end of the country.
Would say, exactly.
Not ideal for percolation in terms of discharging effluent from a wastewater treatment system down to the ground. So the issues you would have in terms of more pertinent to Leitrim was you might have ponding of wastewater effluent at surface level. So the obvious public health and environmental health issues come into play there in terms of if you have a private well nearby or a stream or a water course nearby, that's a potential pollutant there. So there are, I suppose, provisions available in relation to the restoration of cottages or previous dwellings if they had a septic tank there. There are provisions available under Section 1.3 of the Code of Practice that you don't necessarily have to adhere to the same standards that are in the Code of Practice, but they will. It is discretionary, I suppose, just to highlight that you may be able to upgrade your system. It might not conform to the actual performance of the Code of Practice, but because it's an upgrade, there are provisions available in the Code of Practice to allow for that. So I suppose that's what makes a scheme like the restoration of homes very popular in that regard. And it's, I suppose, from a planning point of view, we don't really get a full picture of what sites are failing percolation tests because they don't transpire into planning applications.
Doesn't come that far, exactly.
Well, exactly. It would be a fail or a refusal if it failed the test. So we're kind of bound to adhere to the Code of Practice ourselves.
But I suppose with everything, the key message here is reach out early for the best advice possible. Hugh?
Well, it's very important to engage with an engineer, particularly if you're in the country, in the countryside, in a house, because you can all get very excited and then you can't have any sewage. So it is very important that there are, as I said, there are boxes to tick before you make a purchase. And sometimes people don't tick all the boxes and then get caught. Sorry, you talked about, that great booklet on
Bringing Back Homes manual.
That's amazing. I'd recommend everyone.
The Bringing Back Homes manual, folks, that Anne-Marie mentioned earlier.
It's an idiot's guide. Sorry.
It's available online, obviously.
It is an idiot's guide, and it goes, now I understand. It's fantastic. Because it really is.
I'm sure you've seen, it's a very emotive thing, your property and owning your own home, and people can make impulsive decisions and purchases.
They can, and it's like, so I'm an architect, believe it or believe it not. but so Martin and I bought a house in town in Clanbrassil Street, and it turned out we got the grant. But then when we all got on site, I had to take basically half the house down because it was rotten. Then, of course, the new engineer arrived. You know them? Very difficult. So I have a two-storey house which has no cracks and no foundation. And now I had to go down 2 meters. was in my foundations. So when you buy an old property, please don't think it's rosy. It's very complicated. Now, you bought a 1960s.
Yeah.
So at least you knew what you had.
Structure, yeah. And you could see that there was a suspended timber floor. There was actually no insulation at all in the house. So in winter, the walls would freeze, and I'd come in, and when it was defrost, and the water would be running down the walls. So you could get easily shocked, but you kind of have to have an open mind as well. But the actual basic structure was fairly good. Like, there was a few things that obviously had issues, but the proportions also of rooms were also sort of...
But buildings are very forgiving. Just they want to work with you. And so you'll find a house that's really damp and there's water problems. A huge amount of those are caused because in the 40s, 50s and 60s, everybody stripped out all the lime render and put concrete on. And the walls couldn't breathe, and all of a sudden you'd damp. But so if you own one of those houses, that's one of the issues, because now you have to take all the concrete off the outside of the house and the inside.
I'm just conscious of time, folks. I know we could, not at all, we could have this conversation all evening. Just to close, Shane, I know there's huge benefits, as Hugh pointed out, in doing some of the manual clear out of an old house yourself, but there is a clear delineation then of what you can't apply for the grant for retrospective works.
Yeah. Correct. So everything has to be done. So before the first site inspection, anything done before that can't be included in the grant process. You can self-perform the work, as Hugh says. You can go in and strip out the house if that's what you want to do, but you just can't claim for your own time. You can only claim for materials that you use to renovate the property. So if you're putting on a new roof, you're buying slates, whatever you're buying, you can send the invoices in for that and you'll be able to get that money back. But it just has to be, any contractor you use has to be tax compliant, as I said.
So the other thing that is interesting is it's very important to talk to you.
Or Aisling.
Or Aisling. Or Aisling. Well done, Aisling.
Aisling is loving
See
this.
the way,
it's all
see the
going
way
Shane's way.
he just handed that over. So
9 times out of 10, Aisling will answer the phone.
Okay. So just to say, there's an ambiguity which needs to be clarified, because you don't actually need your property finished to draw down the money. Is that correct?
That's correct. If it's a principal private residence, it can be finished to whatever standard. So if you have 70,000 worth of work done, you have the roof on it, and you claim for that at the start, that's important to note. You have to submit the invoices, and you put in new windows, or you do whatever element of work you do, and that comes up to 70,000, then you can draw down the grant. But it's different for the rental one. The rental has to be up to the rental standard 2019. There has to be a tenant in place, but it's slightly different for the PPR.
In that scenario,
but that's really important.
Huge,
people don't
huge.
know that.
Yeah, exactly, because people are petrified a little bit by the 13-month limitation.
Oh, now, come on. 13 months, get out of it.
But Shane,
you give out another 6 months willy-nilly.
This is being
Once
recorded.
Once we have pictures, we give out.
I know that, but no, just, I have to come back. The councils are here to assist you. So I've been very naughty because I'm 24 months.
But in that scenario, Shane, in that scenario where you have in a private residency option, and you have completed the work that you applied for the grant for, is there then a time limit in which you must be living in the house?
No.
Okay.
But you'd be kind of thinking that it is your home, so you're going to be trying to push it on.
Of course,
people
will want to
and the money
get in
you
as
get
soon as possible. But
from the grant payment will obviously assist you to get across the line and get into the house. We see that from.
But the house has to be substantially finished. The finishes mightn't be there. Is that fair?
Yeah, well, the house will, the main structural elements will be.
And all the insulation, all that good stuff will be in the windows, doors, roof.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, but that isn't known, and I only found that out today.
Yeah, I wouldn't have known that.
So now I know how to fill the form in.
Well, folks, listen, unfortunately, we're going to have to wrap up this particular section. It's been a really fascinating chat and contribution from everybody. So a big round of applause, please, for the first panel. You can go ahead and take us.